I'd love to see Smithy as the Mayor of London more than I'd love to see Sadiq Khan as the Mayor of London.
If James Corden is the answer to your political woes, then you really have to wonder about the question. So on the day Slippery Starmer has completed his long-rumoured Brexit betrayal, meaning we are now an EU rule taker from Brussels, everything Leave voters spent years fighting against, Labour has unveiled its next big idea. Put James Corden, a British celebrity now hated by locals on a Prince Harry and Meghan Markle level, a bloke who lives in a £11 million mansion in northwest London, put him in charge of London to replace our failed Mayor Sadiq Khan, who is widely expected to stand down in 2028. Perhaps Starmer is also betraying his own senses by deciding the ultimate champagne socialist celebrity, known for his diva fits and appalling treatment of waiting staff, is the right choice to save our capital city, especially when his Reform UK rival may well be genuine SAS hero Ant Middleton. Corden's political judgment is likely to be the same as his choice of BFFs in the form of the Sussexes, given he once said he couldn't shake the feeling that if Tom Watson had been the leader of the Labour Party, he would have defeated Boris Johnson to become Prime Minister. Now, speaking of Boris, his flowery language has been spot on today as he accuses Slippery Starmer of making us the EU's gimp once more.
Worst of all, he's decided that we can pay for this. We're going to pay for the privilege of once again being ruled in many ways by Brussels. We're going to be coughing up to the EU budgets. It's absolutely absurd. It goes against what he said. He's turning this country once again into the orange ball chewing leather trust gimp, if I've got the right word.
Well, going back to
of Brussels.
And that criticism came after some astonishing talk from ex-Labour man George Galloway. Read the secrets of the Prime Minister's private life.
Of the victim of these crimes is, I don't know if Keir Starmer prefers men or women, and I don't care. I don't care whether he's a top or a bottom.
Meanwhile, even Elton John spent yesterday slamming Starmer as a loser.
If you've got to get rid of that, and you're going to rob young people of their legacy and their income, it's a criminal offence, I think. I think the government are just being absolute losers, and I'm very angry about it, as you can tell. Big tech has so much money, and if you're a young person, you're fighting big tech, good luck. I want the government to see sense. I want it to come back on our side, because if they don't, I'm going to feel like a suffragette. The Derby's coming up soon, right? It's just, but it's really disrespectful. It's really disheartening. I supported the government. I did a thing for them at St Paul's Cathedral when the Keir Starmer said, "I want to help young people in the music business. I want to support them." Well, he's not doing it, and I did that show, and I did it because I believed, but I'm not believing so much now.
And after today's surrender summit, it is impossible to suggest anything other than Starmer being a big loser, especially after he agreed to give the EU full reciprocal access to UK waters until June 2038, a period 3 times longer than the 4-year deal that had been predicted. Nigel Farage says it's the end of the UK fishing industry. Starmer is also a loser for agreeing to align with EU laws on some areas which are subjected to the European Court of Justice. This is, of course, a massive betrayal to the 17,410,742 of us who voted to leave. But trust me, as I have been saying for years, Starmer has always planned a sellout.
Our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option. We've agreed that it must be subject to another referendum.
Let's try it out now. So the Tories say, we're out. The Lib Dems say, we're staying. Labour says,
If you vote for Labour, the public will decide in a referendum. And there's now only one way. Whether in this government or the next, put it to the people.
Will the Labour front bench actually be putting down an amendment for a referendum and then vote for it?
I think it's more likely that it'll come from the backbench because almost every victory we've had...
Will Labour back it then?
Yes. There's only one way to solve this. This has to go back to the people. And Labour says, let's get it away from the politicians, put it back to the public. Yeah. But Labour's position, 3 sentences, get a better deal than his, put it up against Remain in a referendum and do that within 6 months.
Remarkably today, even the MSM, even the usual suspects in the MSM seem opposed to this disaster deal.
Prime Minister, isn't this almost the worst of possible worlds in the sense that you've laid yourself open to accusations of betrayal from Brexit supporters because we are again having rules set for food by Brussels, while you're adding back just a 20th of the GDP, the national income, that we lost when we left the European Union?
Prime Minister, Chris Mason, BBC News. To be clear, Prime Minister, isn't the truth that you've sold out the fishermen for what you see as the greater good? And a question to the European Union, to President von der Leyen. This deal involves the UK becoming an EU rule taker, which some people here really don't like. Are you pleased to have the UK back within the EU's orbit? Thank you.
Chris, let me go first. Firstly, the focus, the driving principles of the comprehensive set of arrangements we've agreed today is about bills, it's about jobs, and it's about borders. They're the driving principles. And the SPS zone cuts away a huge amount of red tape for businesses in the way that we trade. It is incredibly important for fish because over 70% of our seafood goes into the European market. So for the first time under this arrangement, our fishing communities are able to sell more easily into the European market. As I say, 70% goes into that market. The length of time for the agreement provides the stability, because what would have happened next year is we would have come off the current arrangements, but then into year-on-year negotiations where nobody knows year-on-year where they stand. This gives stability in relation to that. It also opens the door for shellfish and the like to be sold back into the European market, which wasn't available before this deal. And of course, we've announced the £360 transformation fund. So what this goes with is that access on a permanent basis, the SPS agreement on a permanent basis for our fishermen and fisherwomen in our fishing communities into that market. Huge amount of their stock goes into this. So this is good for fishing.
By the way, did you see the panic on his face when it said fishermen? Because he's so PC, he immediately had to say fisherwomen, and it reminded me of Sam Smith.
I do love fishing. Yes, I do. What? Yeah, I'd love to be a fisherman.
What, like a fly fisherman?
I'd be any type of fisherman.
A brief moment of levity on a tragic day for Britain under the worst Prime Minister in a generation. To respond now, Alex Phillips. Alex Phillips, look, you're a former Brexit Party MEP. We will get to this disaster deal in just one moment. But I've got to ask you first, James Corden as the Mayor of London? Like, does Labour really believe this is the solution when probably Reform UK is going to be having Ant Middleton running? But first, ever wonder why you can't make it through the night without a bathroom trip anymore? By your 30s and 40s, up to 1 in 3 adults deal with nocturia, waking up to pee, basically. And sadly, it only gets worse with age. Your bladder holds less, your sleep gets lighter, and hormonal changes means your kidneys keep pumping out urine instead of saving it for the morning. How annoying. If I get up to use the bathroom, I have to be honest, I'm up for hours trying to fall back to sleep. So that's what led me to try Evening Being by Verso. It has 3 grams of glycine proven to calm an overactive bladder, dropping nighttime bathroom runs. It also helps you fall asleep faster, stay in deep sleep longer, and feel sharper the next day. Plus, it's melatonin free and has clinically studied ingredients shown in multiple human studies to calm the mind, support mood, and promote restorative sleep. And it tastes so good. I like to drink it cold, but you can have it hot too. Since starting Evening Bean, I've had fewer bathroom trips at night and wake up refreshed. It isn't just me. Take a look at their reviews from Catherine W. I used to get up to use the washroom 3 times a night. Since using an Evening Bean, I'm only getting up 1 time a night, sometimes none. I fall asleep faster and wake up refreshed. Patricia M. I fall asleep in a lot less time than I used to, and even after getting up for the bathroom, I can get back to sleep easily. So just click the link in the show description or head on over to evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. Try Evening Bean tonight and wake up feeling refreshed tomorrow. That's evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15%. But now, back to the show.
Well, do you know what? I'd love to see Smithy as the Mayor of London more than I'd love to see Sadiq Khan as the Mayor of London. But, I mean, let's just see what happens. I don't think he's actually going to do it. Why would he want to get sort of tied up in red tape and bureaucracy and, messing about in politics at the rough end in a city which is really going down the drain? I can't see any attraction in it when I could live in the Hollywood Hills and be making millions of pounds. So I think it's probably just a sort of publicity stunt of some form. But hey, if they're having to start digging around in the realms of celebrity, it really does show how really pathetic the Labour Party's front bench is. I mean, they haven't got anybody. Everybody who's got a, recognised name in that party is a screaming dumpster fire. So they're having to go to people who normally live in Hollywood.
Yeah, indeed. It hasn't gone down well. There's Adam Brooks, very decent guy, posted in response to this that he was the rudest celebrity that he had ever met. And when he was asked for more detail, he said he was having a proper diva fit with people around him, proper rude, needlessly so. So actually, he sounds a little bit like Sadiq Khan, Alex.
Yeah, James Corden does have a reputation, doesn't he, of being actually a very unpleasant man in reality. I mean, I don't know him at all. Maybe he's lovely, maybe he's not. But like I said, what qualifications does he have to run the city in the 7th largest economy in the world with all of the problems that London is facing today? And, the thing is, most celebrities, like I saw Elton John, God bless him, in the introduction there, talking about the Labour Party. They all want to vote for the Labour Party or support the Labour Party automatically. They haven't got a clue what the Labour Party stands for. They don't have a clue about politics. They think it's all about just being nice about things and being generous, which is very easy to do. It's like, I'm so rich, I get to shower myself in moral rectitude by being a philanthropist. Great, well done you. But I wouldn't want that job in a month of Sundays. It's going to need someone with a lot of gumption to take over London and pull it back together. I mean, frankly, do you know what I think would be a great option? I think if Boris Johnson is going to make a comeback, he should come back as London Mayor, because actually role that suited him very well.
He was great as London Mayor, honestly, and the city was such a better place. I mean, look, I do know James Corden, Alex, pretty well, actually, but he dropped me like a ton of hot bricks the moment Harry and Meghan told him to. And I just thought that showed a real lack of character. Speaking of lack of character, I've called Starmer a traitor today, said he should be wanted for treason. And guess who replied to me, Alex? Alistair Campbell. And your old friend, your old pal, and he wrote, superb engaging on the substance as ever from Desperado Dan. And I replied, you should be in jail too for war crimes, so I'd keep your mouth shut on this one, matey. And Alex, isn't it true that the worst people today are defending this Brexit betrayal?
Yeah, of course. What would you expect otherwise? Because that's exactly what it is. They're rubbing their hands together with glee because they've only had to wait fewer than 10 years, less than a decade from that historic referendum. And let's remember, of course, we spent 4 years messing about, arguing about it, then another year sort of gearing us up to actually leave the damn union. So we haven't even had Brexit for 4 years yet. We haven't even had it for 4 years, Dan. And they're already trying to reverse it. And this isn't a deal, because do you know what a deal involves? A deal involves giving something and getting something in return. I'm not sure what we're getting in return for any of this. I mean, we're going back under what's called dynamic alignment in agricultural measures, which means every time the EU comes up with a rule, we have to just full scale adopt it without being sitting around the table and deciding what that is. Now, this isn't about if you want to sell a particular widget into the EU, it's got to apply by EU standards. This is across the board. They tell us how things have got to be done, and we just have to go along with that, regardless of whose market we're trying to enter. And we've just signed a historic trade deal with India. We signed a sort of precursor to a trade deal with America. We really should be looking at expanding our markets globally. Now we've started to get a bit of momentum in that direction, rather than saying, how do we reshackle ourselves to the bureaucratic orbit of a failing bloc whose economies are collapsing? Fishing, we've just said, oh yeah, you miss actually being able to rinse our waters and completely dredge them dry. Have that back for 12 years. First of all, the government said, okay, 4 years, it can continue for another 4 years, that you still get to fish in our waters. Next thing I read, Brussels said 5 years. Now we've actually done the deal, it's 12 years. I'm like, how did that happen? And then at the same time, this is all about the UK being able to sell weapons into the EU, because America has basically said, pull yourselves together, we're not going to help anymore when it comes to defense in your neighborhood. You've got to look after your own backyard. So they're scrambling to rearm themselves, having given a lot to Kiev, and they desperately need to restock their arsenals. And so where are they going to buy those weapons from? Well, guess what? BAE Systems is a world leader in weaponry. So they're going to be buying it from. And so they've, given us access to the EU market to sell our weapons to them. Thank you very much. We sell our weapons all around the world without having to be part of some sort of union that demands access to waters. But one thing that is a relief, actually, is in the element of the defence agreement. We haven't gone as far as the Barnier White Paper of 2018 would have liked us to. We haven't signed up to what is called PESCO, which is the strategic arm of this. We haven't signed up to full-scale foreign affairs and defence cooperation, although that could be in train. There's another element to this, which is coming out later, a second phase being authored by Ursula von der Leyen herself, of course, the failed German defence minister before she became the head of the EU Commission. So watch that space. But actually, the area that I was most worried there was going to be a major sellout, not that the rest of this so-called deal is dreadful, but the area I was desperately worried about, we haven't yet gone down that route. But it is just ridiculous.
Well,
come on.
See, Alex, I was speaking to someone about this earlier who's very much in the know over this, and they said initially it doesn't look as bad as it fared on the defence stage. But they then said to me, but there will be a second defence agreement on funding rules and defence. And they are predicting, Alex, I don't know if you agree, but that Starmer's real sellout will come later, because that second part will be the part where participation rules require the UK to align with EU foreign and defence policy.
Exactly. And I don't know if you and I speak to the same people. I have a suspicion we probably do when it comes to a particular EU military expert who sends out brilliant briefings. But this is the big concern here, because at the end of the day, when you see there's an argument, people say, well, Europe needs to get together and cooperate, particularly as America is less interested in jumping to our defense every 5 seconds, and you can't really blame them. And so actually some sort of EU defense pact isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you look at how they were at the outbreak of the Ukraine invasion, the fact that they didn't want to actually apply any sanctions to Putin, they wanted to continue buying his gas. When we actually wanted to send armaments to Ukraine, the Germans wouldn't even let us fly things over their airspace. They were being that finicky. Okay, they've gone on to be a great donor now to the Ukrainian project. But actually, if the EU had been able to act as quickly as we did at the very outset of all of this, I don't think Putin would have got very far. This wouldn't have dragged on for years and years and years. So that is what EU defence looks like. Under no circumstances should we let unelected bureaucrats in Brussels decide how we defend our nation and which wars we want to get involved in. And that is the big risk going forward.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.